Welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about the next Mario Bava film, which is Ecologia del Delitto, which means Ecology of Crime, better known in the United States as Bay of Blood. Now, Mario Bava, if you remember, in 1970 released two movies. One was Hatchet for a Honeymoon, and the other was $5 for a Dog in August Moon. Both of those were giallo films, and so is Bay of Blood, except Bay of Blood kicks it way up and kind of does the same thing that Dario Argento's Cat o' Nine Tails does by increasing the violence factor multiple times over. Okay? 1971 seems to be much more violent than all past years. There were only a few films of 1970 that really stuck out in that area, but almost every movie I've watched from 1971 so far has topped almost everything before it, except for like the Herschel Gordon Lewis gore splatter films. So, A Bay of Blood. Where am I going to start here? I just want to remind everyone that Mario Bava is credited with shooting the first giallo film ever, which is A Girl Who Knew Too Much, also known as The Evil Eye. I just watched that yesterday because I hadn't been able to get my hands on it before, and that is a very tame film, even compared to what Bava did the next year, 6 Women for the Assassin, also known as Blood on Black Lace. The Girl Who Knew Too Much is basically just like a mystery, mild thriller mystery. Like one person gets a knife in the back at the beginning, one person gets a knife in the back at the end. It's really not a horror film in my opinion. There were a whole bunch of other thriller films that came before it, like Taste of Fear and The Bat, and that did the same thing, but this one was Italian. So people say it's the first giallo because it's an Italian murder mystery. However, Blood and Black Lace, or 6 Women for the Assassin, establishes a lot of things that we see in many gialli to come, such as the use of primary colors, the whole red herring thing where it makes you think that someone is the killer and then that person gets killed, so then the person can't be the killer. And having multiple suspects to the point where you really can't figure it out. That all really got established with Bava's second film of this type. And he made a bunch more, including the 2 that we just mentioned in 1970. Those 2... Actually, let me scratch that. $5 for an August Moon was a giallo, but even though people say Hatchet for a Honeymoon is, I gotta disagree. You can watch the video on that one if you haven't already, but it's very minimal on the mystery part because you know who's doing the killing from the very beginning, so I don't consider that to be a giallo. This one, on the other hand, is probably the craziest realistic giallo I have seen ever. I don't know how many I've seen, like 20. So, there's way more than that out there. But if you'd remove the few Argento gialli that have supernatural elements and therefore are able to become even crazier, this is the most twisted, multi-branched plot that I have seen. It is so good and so complex that I had to watch it twice in 2 days before I made this, because after the first watch I knew I loved it, but I didn't totally process everything that happened. Okay? It has a fairly decent score, as you can hear in the background. It is very, very fast-paced. It's like 84 minutes, which I guess is pretty short anyway, but it feels like the whole thing is over and done in less than an hour. It goes so quickly because there are so many interesting parts. And if you could actually hold on to all of the plot points upon one viewing, then your brain is better than mine, because I certainly cannot. So I give this a 10 out of 10. I watched it twice. I give it a 10 out of 10 both times, which means it's an even more solid 10 out of 10 than, a first watch only 10 out of 10. So now I'm going to say, if you have not seen this, you should probably turn this off in a few seconds. You can watch it on Shudder or Canopy if you have either of those services. If not, or if by the time you watch this, it's not available, I would go out and buy this. Okay, this is an excellent film. Mario Bava is kind of hit or miss for me, even though I love some of his movies. There's a lot that don't really do anything for me, but this is now my favorite of his. It's so good. All right, I guess if you haven't turned it off yet, I'll give you the basic premise before I get into the details, but I really recommend that you do not listen to the detailed plot portion of this video if you haven't seen it yet. All right, the basic premise is, right at the beginning, a woman who owns a lot of property, and possibly all of the property around a bay in Italy, which this was filmed in Latina, Italy. She owns possibly all the property. They don't really say, but she owns possibly all the property around this bay. And right at the beginning, she's in a wheelchair. She gets a rope thrown around her neck, and then she's killed. Okay? Now, you can imagine that there are people that would have motives because she owns all this property. So, at this point, just go, okay? Because the first plot twist happens like within 5 minutes of the movie. So turn this video off if you haven't seen it. If you have seen it, let's continue on and highlight how crazy the writing is on this movie. So, she dies, okay? She's hanged. Her wheelchair gets kicked out from under her. She's hanging by this rope. She's hanged by a guy. He takes the black giallo gloves off, kind of admiring his work. Then he hears a sound. What's that? He's not sure. He inspects. He sees nothing. He goes back, takes out a cigarette. Before you know it, he's stabbed to death. And you don't know by whom. So the first surprise here is the fact that the killer, you see his face. And when I was watching, I was like, oh, so it's not going to be a mystery, I see. Within a minute or two, he is then killed, and we don't know who did it. Now, the thing that makes this movie really great is all the characters. Who is the main character? I don't think there is one. In fact, the woman that receives top billing, Claudine Auger, is certainly, I wouldn't say the main character. She survives longer than some others, but she's not even in it till like the second half of the movie. So we've got, let's see if I can remember their names. We have Federica, who dies right at the beginning. Her husband's name is Filippo, who also then dies right at the beginning. We have Simone, or Simon, if you watch the American version. Simon is a fisherman on the bay. We are introduced to Simon by seeing him take a bite into a live octopus. That's the first thing that we see him do. And he does it within the first second of being on screen. It cuts to him from a different scene. He's just biting into an octopus. We have Paolo. Paolo is a biologist that lives on the bay. We have Paolo's wife, who is a alcoholic tarot card reader. We have Franco, or Frank, who is a businessman who's trying to buy the bay. And we have Laura, who is Franco's girlfriend. And then we have Renata, who is the daughter of Filippo. And then we have Alberto, who is Renata's husband. We also have four, I don't know if they even get names, but there's four other maybe like 21-year-old kids that are tourists. and they show up for a brief amount of time. So, a cool thing, and really turn this off if you haven't seen it, but a cool thing about this movie, you don't want to hear this if you haven't seen it. A cool thing about this movie is that every single one of those characters I just mentioned dies. None of them survive. And even watching it the second time, knowing that they were all going to die, it's just as exciting because I couldn't remember who killed whom in the first one, because there is more than one killer. That's the big twist here. There's more than one killer. Okay, so we have, you know what, I'm not going to even go through all of it, okay? But we have all these different motives. Some of the people want to preserve the bay the way it is, including the fisherman and the scientist, and Federica, the countess who actually owns it. And then we have people like her husband and others, like the businessman and yet others, who want to turn it into a commercial area and get more tourism and put up hotels and other types of things. Kind of like Ozark, if you've seen that Netflix series. This is basically Ozark, except with all the excitement of 3 seasons of Ozark smashed into 84 minutes. Okay, so instead of stretching it out to be 30 hours long, it's one movie. But like, it's as exciting as all the exciting parts of Ozark put together. That might be a slight stretch. But anyway, it is literally the same plot as Ozark. So, you have different people killing each other. We have a man biting an octopus, as I mentioned. We have an octopus crawling on a waterlogged corpse. We have people's heads getting cut off, stabbings, hot water to the face. We have at least 3 impalements. We have this weapon here being used a few times in a few different ways. We see the inside of the weapon used to kill people, the outside of the weapon used to kill people. Someone stabbed someone else through a pane of glass. If you can imagine that. That was pretty crazy. The whole thing is nuts. The whole thing is crazy. The ending, which I hope you've seen this movie if you're this deep into it, the ending is probably the weak link. The whole thing could have ended with 2 adults surviving, but these 2 adults who are married to each other had left their kids home all day, like for the whole plot of the movie, and just like left them in their trailer to like take care of themselves, and they ended up finding their dad's or mom's rifle, and as the parents come home, they're playing with it because they think it's a toy, and they accidentally kill their 2 parents. That was a little bit of a stretch. Like, I like it because it's ridiculous and it's unexpected, but I could see how some people might criticize that. Like, you know, a kid playing with a gun shoots 2 times and kills both of his parents, 2 fatal shots. I don't know about that. Anyway, I was just too excited to mention all these things. The movie is too good. Probably I'm going to say this might be my favorite movie that I've reviewed for this channel out of all of them. I think I like it better than Cat o' Nine Tails, which I think was my favorite before this. And I think I like it better than anything that came out in 1970, although there were some good ones. But this movie is excellent, especially if you like horror. Oh, and the effects are great. There was a lot of 1970 movies where the effects look like, I don't know, paper mache or something. If someone's head comes off, it looks like paper mache. This movie is great. In fact, when one guy gets this weapon, I don't know what that is. It's not like real. It's kind of like a machete, but not really. Curved machete. When this guy gets it in his face, it looks like it's really in there, which it's obviously not, because the guy, it's the actual guy. They must have like cut a piece out of the weapon to make it look like it was really in there. It looks like it's like 2 or 3 inches deep in his entire head, and it's like kind of between his eyes, so you can see both of his eyes blinking, and he kind of like stumbles around before he falls over, and it looks so good. If you're into gore and stuff and practical effects and on-screen killings, this might be the best one up to this point. If we think of Cat of Nine Tails, when that guy gets hit by the train, it's very obviously a mannequin. And there's a couple other somewhat gruesome killings in Cat of Nine Tails, but like some of them are because they're prolonged and not so much because they look crazy. This one, that when that guy takes that thing to his face, man, it looks crazy. The other girl gets her throat cut by it, and that looks pretty crazy too. And the impalements, I don't even know how they did it. It really, naked people get impaled, and it really looks like it's going in there, and you can tell that it's a real person, and that it's, like a makeup job. It's not a mannequin. It's a real person that they applied the effects to, and she's very lean, and you can see all the little muscles in her back moving around as she gets impaled. It's extremely impressive. So kudos to the special effects person, who I did not look up. I'll stop because this is really long enough, but I can't recommend this one enough. 10 out of 10. Go see it, okay? Mario Bava will return in 1972. I think the movie he did in 1972 is called Barren Blood, which is similar to Bay of Blood, but then again, he didn't actually title his movie Bay of Blood. He titled it Ecology of Crime, which is kind of lame. This is one of the few movies where I think the English title is better than the Italian title. All right, that's it. I will see you next time.